Alright, so this is the first video that I'm putting together for guitar theory lessons. In this video we're going to talk about exploring the root notes all over the fretboard, and we're going to use a system. It's called the CAGED system. So in the musical alphabet there's 7 notes: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And we refer to these notes as natural notes. Now, in between these natural notes, we have what's called accidentals. Accidental notes can be sharp or flat, as shown by the little symbols. The sharp symbol looks like a pound sign. The flat symbol looks like a lowercase b. And these accidental notes are between the natural notes A and B, C and D, D and E, F and G and A. However, there are no accidental notes between the natural notes B and C and E and F. If you were looking at a piano, these natural notes would correspond to the white keys. The black notes on a piano are noted using accidentals after the letters, which indicate that the note should be raised or lowered. A black note on a piano can be reached both raising the lower white note and by lowering the higher white note. So all the black notes can actually have 2 names. For example, the note B flat is the same as the note A sharp, and this is known as enharmonic notes. So each fret on the guitar corresponds to a semitone, or also called a half step, which is the same as moving to the next note, white or black, on the piano. Now on a piano, there is no black key between notes E and F, or between the notes B and C. So when we're moving up the frets, exploring the fretboard, we only want to move 1 fret between those notes, E and F and B and C, also known as 1 semitone. So in this diagram, I went ahead and mapped out the natural notes on all 6 strings. Now at this point of the video, I really recommend that you take some time to memorize the natural notes on each string. Start with, say, the 6th string, the bottom E string, and just memorize all the natural notes on that. Take a couple days to do it, however long it takes you. Then move on to the A string, the 5th string. Do the same, take a few days, and so on and so forth. It'll just make life a lot easier when we're trying to identify the root notes using the CAGED system. If you don't know your natural notes across the fretboard, things can get pretty confusing real fast. So I should also point out that because there are 2 E strings, the 6th string and the 1st string, so any of the notes that you learn on the 6th string are the exact same on the 1st string, and vice versa, as you can see in this diagram. There's a lot of methods for fretboard memorization. If you just do a Google search or YouTube search, there's tons of videos out there with some tips and tricks on how to do this. For me personally, say like on the 6th string, the low E string, I use the fret markers as kind of a guide to identifying the notes. I know that on the 3rd fret is a G, the 5th fret is an A, and the 7th fret is a B. And just little visual cues like that can kind of help you out. Once you know the natural notes on the fretboard, then finding the sharps and flats, the accidentals, is real easy. If say we're on the 3rd fret on the low E string, we know that's a G. If we wanted to find G flat, then we would simply move back or down 1 semitone to the 2nd fret to the G flat. If we wanted to raise from the G on the 3rd fret to a G sharp, you would just go up 1 fret or 1 semitone. Now if we want to move 1 whole step from the G to the A note, we would just count 2 frets or 2 semitones. 2 semitones equals 1 whole tone. Now it's also important to note that the open strings, E, A, D, G, B, and E, are also the same notes at the 12th fret, the double dots. The 12th fret represents the full octave from the open strings. So everything you learn from the open string to the 11th fret will then be, or to the 12th fret, I should say, will then be repeated from the 12th fret all the way up to the 24th fret. Another trick to help you memorize the notes is that, say for example, we have the open E string, the low 6th string. You can also find the E note on the A string at the 7th fret. So you just keep going up the strings. So an open A at the 5th string, that A note could also be found on the D string at the 7th fret. The D note on the open 4th string can also be found on the G string at the 7th fret. Now where it changes is on the B string, which is the 2nd string. So if you want to find G notes on the 2nd string, the B string, it would be at the 8th fret, which is a semitone higher from the 7th. And then back to the normal pattern from the 2nd to 1st string. So if you want to find a B note on the high E string, the 1st string, it would be at the 7th fret. It just makes it a lot easier having these little visual cues memorized. So anytime you want to find a note, you don't have to start at, say, like the 12th fret or the open note and then start counting your way up and down to find root notes or fifth notes or anything like that. That'll kind of slow you down. It's best to have a lot of this just completely memorized. Okay, so now I want to talk about root notes and what a root note is. A root note is typically the lowest note within any scale, and it's the basis for any chord. So if someone said, for example, you're playing the key of C, then you know that C is the root note. We'll take, for example, the C major scale, and I'm using the C major scale because there's no sharps or flats, and it makes it a little bit easier. So the notes of a C major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then an octave higher to the C again. And in the major scale, each note corresponds to a specific degree. For example, in a major scale, the first note, in this case C, is the root. The second note, in this case, is D. Third note would be E. And fourth note would be F, and so on and so forth. We'll get into this a little bit more on the next lesson when we talk about building major scales, so don't get too concerned about this right now. Probably the first thing that people learn when they first pick up the guitar are the open chords, or they're often referred to as campfire chords. And they're called open chords because they have open notes or open strings within the chords, like the chord C, A, G, E, and D. Now, if just played by themselves, these chords can be a little elementary and kind of boring, but they actually serve a bigger purpose in what's called the CAGED system. So the word CAGED is just a sequence of those chords, the C chord, A chord, G chord, E chord, and D chord. So we'll start with the C chord. The fingering for the C chord is the 5th string, 3rd fret, the 4th string at the 2nd fret, the 3rd string, which is open, and the B string at the 1st fret, and then the 1st string, E string, which is open. Now within that chord, the root C can be found in two places. The first is on the A string at the 3rd fret, and the second is on the B string at the 1st fret. Okay, so now we'll look at the A chord, and the fingering for that is the 5th string is open, and the 4th string is the 2nd fret. The G string, 3rd string, is on the 2nd fret, The second string B is also at the second fret, and then the high E string is open. And within this chord, the root note A can be found in two places as well. The first would be the open A string, and then the second would be on the G string, the third string, at the second fret. Okay, now we look at the G chord. The fingering for that is the low E string, is the third fret. On the A string, fifth string, we're on the second fret. And then the fourth, third, and second strings are all open. And then the high E, you placed on the third fret. And the root note, which is G, can be found in three places. The first is on the low E string at the third fret. The second would be the open third string, which is G. And then the third would be the high E string at the third fret. And now the E chord. And the fingering for this is the sixth string, E string is open. The fifth string, A string, is at the second fret. The fourth string is also at the second fret. The third string is at the first fret. The second string is open, and then the high E first string is also open. And its root note, E, can be found in three places. First is the sixth string, which is open. And the second would be the fourth string at the second fret. And then the third would be the high E string, which is open. And then the last chord is the D chord. And the fingering for that is the fourth string, which is open, the third string, which is at the second fret, the second string, which is at the third fret, and then the high E first string is at the second fret. Now the root note D can be found in two places for this. The first is the fourth string, open, and the second would be the B string at the third fret. Now these chords we're actually going to refer to as shapes. What I mean by that is the fingering patterns. These shapes or patterns can be moved to any root key. So a C shape doesn't have to be exclusively to a C root note. It can be moved to any key. And the same for all the other chords. An A shape can be moved to any key, G shape, any key, and so on. Now as you can see in these shapes, we've left the root notes and taken out all the other notes. These shapes interlock within one another in that order of C, A, G, E, D. So if you were to put all these shapes side by side to one another in the order of C, A, G, E, D, it would look like this. So let's say, for example, we pick a root note on the B string, any fret, it doesn't matter. Because it's on the B string, that indicates to us that we're playing the C shape. Now I just happen to pick the note D on the second string, the B string, so that means we're playing in the key of D. And if you pick a note, a root note that is on the A string, then that lets us know that you're playing in the A shape. If you pick a root note that is on the G string, then it indicates that you're playing the G shape. If you pick a root note that is on either the low E or the high E string, then that means you're playing in the E shape. And if you pick a root note that's on the D string, then that indicates that you're playing the D shape. So now let's connect the shapes going up the scale. We started on the C shape on the key in the key of D on the B string. Now we go to the A shape, then the G shape, then the E shape, and then the D shape. Now you'll notice from the first shape that we used on the B string at the third fret, we actually have room to go back to the D shape. So as you can see, this gives you a lot of options. Just knowing these root notes using this CAGED system helps you navigate around the fretboard, and you don't have to start on any particular shape. You have 5 shapes to work with in different areas. So in the key of D, if we were to play every root note as shown in this diagram, it would sound like this. So just take a few minutes, 10, 15 minutes a day, just practicing these root shapes, the CAGED, and practice them in different areas, different keys. Say, start with the G shape, and then go back to the C shape, and then start from the D shape, and then go to the A shape. Just go up and down. Just create different patterns, and that way you get familiar with the fretboard quite easily. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this lesson. Just take some time to go through this video, as many times as you need, and just practice the material. Even when you're not playing the guitar, if you're at work or at home and you got some pen and paper, just write these root shapes out and just try to visualize it in your head. Just 10, 15 minutes a day, it's all you really need. All right, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'm George Gill, and I'll see you next time.